This is Beijing on the 30th of November 2022. Just waiting for the sunrise. A live stream. Interesting. And the title that I put up was about reflecting on protest, which makes me laugh when I see some of the Western media, read some of the content, go on my Twitter feed or whatever, and I see some of the, I don't know, misguided viewpoints. And that's probably what I'll ramble on about while this sunrise comes up. Because the sunrise here is really beautiful, I have to say. It is beautiful. Although very, very cold. It is cold outside. I think it's something like -8 degrees outside right now. And with the cold wind, the feel-like temperature is about -13. So it's cold. But when the sun comes back up, when the sun rises, it should heat up. We should get back to about -2, -1 today. So Beijing is in winter and it's cold. And as you can see there with some smoke in the distance, there is energy generation to support the heat across the city. And I've done a video on that and explained in that video how that works. But yeah, it's a different approach here in Beijing and in China and how the heating system works. So that's really quite interesting. But for me, the interesting thing is that the sun comes up and it's beautiful to see. And the thing is, it'll come up tomorrow and it'll come up the next day. And this is the crazy thing. The sun rises every single day. And it'll rise long after I'm gone, long after we are all gone. The sun will come up. But if we're lucky, I think maybe our children and our children's children and our children's 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 children will get to see this sunrise every single day. They may be lucky to experience what we're lucky to experience, and that is a beautiful time to be alive, I guess. But this is the one thing that I want to come back to around the protests and all the other nonsense that I see, and this is about if we continue to stay on this path of hating each other and getting angry because we are told or influenced to get angry, then there is a high probability that we'll probably end up destroying this beautiful world, man. And it's crazy. Look at this beautiful world and we're all angry and want to fight with each other. I often think about what kind of world my kids will live in when they get to my age. And that's 30 years, 40 years from now, but I always wonder what world will they be living in. I really hope that they live in a world where people help each other, where the government and other entities that they look to for help or they put faith in because they vote for them or they stand up for them. I hope that these entities help them, my children, your children, everybody's children survive, rise, learn and get better over their lifetime. And the funny thing is, this idea of a government helping you survive, rise up, get better over your lifetime, this is the mentality that I've seen here in China. People being helped to improve their lives. And I've been in China for six years now. And I've seen an amazing increase over that 6 years. But over the last 40 years, you've seen an incredible growth and development over that 40 years. And it's not perfect by any means. There is a lot to improve, and I get it. You know, a lot of people look in from the outside and see things and pick fault. But that growth, that evidence that things can be done in a different way, and some would argue a better way, is here in China. But that indication, that display that we see here, it scares the governments in the West. It scares them so much that they will do everything in their power to destroy it. And they will use, and I often say this to my kids to make sure that they think deeper, they will use the common man's ignorance and hate to get the permission to destroy and hold back development unless it's on their terms. And I always wonder, where does this hate come from? Well, for me, it's very cleverly put there by subtle and in some cases aggressive messaging that is constantly dripped into the mind through everything that we read or see or hear, even Hollywood movies or newspapers, anything. It's always been dripped into our mind in some subtle way to hate each other. People say to me, Ian, don't be stupid. That doesn't happen. But then I say, that why do we have a multi-billion-dollar advertising industry? Isn't that about influencing people? That industry is about influencing people to do things, to buy things. In fact, people say very often, before you buy, you should shop around, get the best price or get the best deal. And for me, I think that's a good advice when it comes to following the news stories, where you get your information from. I would suggest you shop around. It is difficult, I get it, but you should shop around. You should go far and wide and find other sources many sources, in fact, of information to give you a deeper understanding of any subject matter that you're involved in or you're engaged in, and what you're looking at. Shop around and get more information. And I get it's difficult to get clear news. In fact, I think it's probably impossible to get accurate news because most of the mainstream news is owned by a handful of very wealthy people, and they will decide what you see. They will decide what you take in. Even when you think it's Twitter, it's a free-for-all, even there you've got a multi-billionaire deciding what you see, regardless of how many times Mr. Elon Musk will tell you that he's up for free speech. He's actually not. And he proves that every single day because he blocks things, stops things, and he's under the influence. In fact, what his driver is to make his money back because he screwed up. He paid too much money for that. So his driver is not free speech. His driver is to make back his money. It's funny, you know. I always say that the wealthy people and how they decide what you see, what you read, I would say that's a form of censorship. And that makes me laugh because that is apparently what we're all supposed to be hating when we look at China or other countries, how we censor some things. But I don't know, I've lived here for 6 years and I walk around with a camera, sharing my stories, my conversations with other people. I walk around here in Beijing, nobody bothers me. I tell it like it is. I don't see myself being censored. And that's the hypocrisy of what I see. I see people in the West standing in the street corner in their country currently with a blank sheet of A4 paper, and they're holding it up out of solidarity. And, you know, fine, you're free to do that, but look around you when you do that. See the homeless people in your own country. Think of the poverty and how people currently cannot afford to heat their homes. People cutting back on the one celebration that it's really a beautiful time of year, and that's Christmas, where they're hoping to just hang on and stay alive through the cold winter. That's what their hope is for Christmas. I want to stay alive. I want to stay warm. Jesus Christ, what are we doing, man? And this is the hypocrisy of it all. You're holding up your blank sheet of A4 paper while all around you you're being taken advantage of by your own government. Doesn't make any sense to me. Hypocrisy right through everything that we say and do in the West sometimes. You know, even my own country, Scotland. So some countries can have sovereignty. and independence. But other countries can't. Scotland can't. They don't have the right to vote for its freedom or its independence, even though it's part of a union. But it's okay for the Westminster government and other governments to drive for other countries to have their independence. It's hypocrisy through everything. Through everything. Rambling this morning, but it's beautiful sunshine. It's a beautiful sunrise. The hypocrisy of the attitude that you now have against China, really, is because you're told to. There's certain things that you believe, you're told to believe that. And again, I would recommend you shop around, or at least pause and ask yourself some questions. For instance, I always ask myself, why does England want to hold on to Scotland when apparently we are a drain on their financial situation? The answer is, of course, it's very obvious that the fact that we are a drain on their financial situation is not true. That's why they want to hold on to England. Often, what's it called, Occam's razor. Often the simplest answer is the right answer. You see that when you pause and you think about things, that's the power of the pause. So when you pause and you think, what is China's COVID zero policy? What is it all about? And you can see that it's about keeping people alive. At the very core of it, the intention of it is about saving lives. That's the thing. But people are seeing so many other things, but actually the core of it is about keeping people alive. Think about this, if the virus is left to just rip through China in the way it was in the West, and in the West it resulted in millions of deaths, and it is a sad situation. In fact, the last count, 1.1 million deaths in America. It'll be the same here, even worse. There's 1.4 billion people in China. And even with vaccinations and careful controls, you will still be looking at something like 1.4 million deaths, and also 40 to 50 million people with long COVID symptoms. And that would be tough for any government that holds the health and the wealth of its people as a core tenet of its political manifesto. You've got to think of this. You've got to pause and think about, why is the COVID zero policy there? Yes, in some cases it's not great, and I do think it needs to be refreshed, refined, and changed. And it is a dilemma. It's made very difficult, really, here in China because of the family and community structures. In China, there's 3, sometimes 4 generations living in the same household. And the family unit is so much more communal, and the communities are so much more social than what they are in the West. So if you just let a virus like COVID just rip through that, then it's going to cause carnage. I'm living in the COVID zero policy. I'm not locked down at the moment. We're on a soft lockdown in Beijing in some areas. We can go out, I can go out and walk around. But it's not easy. I don't like the ambiguity of the current COVID policy, but it saved countless lives. It saved millions of lives. And I honestly do believe that they will find a pathway out of it, because I believe in the ingenuity and the innovation of the Chinese people, because the evidence of that genius is all around me, and I see it every single day. And that's the thing, I don't worry too much about China. I see its strength and its people, its desire to keep improving, a strength that has built a country for its people through hard work and innovation, been built over 40, 50 years from scratch. It was a country in poverty, partly because of the West. I worry more about the interference from the West and the constant drive for war and the wealth that delivers for some people, that war wealth that some people benefit from, but most of us don't. In fact, I read the other day that the Pentagon, the US body that is responsible for everything war related, they cannot account for 40% of its $3 trillion worth of its assets. 40% of that $3 trillion assets, they cannot account for 40% of it. It's just disappeared. Pause and think about that. That's a lot of money. Just think about all the money that they've siphoned off during the pandemic in the West. And the UK story of so many MPs that stole so much money, abused the system. They awarded contracts to their friends and their chums worth millions, and they didn't deliver on it, and they just get away with it. It's just crazy. Michelle Moon, who is a Scottish baroness, is said to have personally benefited to the tune of £25 million, but yet no investigation or accountability, and in fact, no outrage from the people in Scotland and the people in the UK. Because guess what? You're too busy holding up a blank piece of A4 paper or putting a Ukraine flag on your Facebook. It's just silly, stupid. You can look beyond some of the propaganda. I could probably go on and ramble more. The sun is just about to come up. I'll let you watch the sun come up in silence. But I was also reading something this morning about the poor BBC journalist that was arrested in Shanghai. And there was more to that detail, but you'll never take the time to see what was behind his arrest. The detail was convenient to leave out. Yeah, poor BBC journalist arrested. But what about Mr. Khashoggi, the journalist that was murdered by the Saudi Arabian hit squad? The same Saudi Arabian country that Trump, Biden and so many other Western leaders get so close and friendly with because they need a favour, they need the oil. And what about the continued state of war that we find ourselves in the West? Wars that cost so much money, lives, maim so many people, and yet people are starving, homeless. Doesn't make any sense to me, it kills me. I sometimes think maybe too deeply and too much, and the weight of the world feels heavy sometimes when you read all this stuff, and I'm sure many people out there feel the same. Some people feel it more than others. I often say there's two types of people. There's people who put themselves at the core of everything that they believe, or people who put others at the core, in the centre of everything that they believe. Two types of people, and you flip between them through life, I guess. And some people feel more of the weight of the world than others. Other people just put their head down and say, I don't want to know about it. But for me, the reassuring thing is the sun will always come up. The sun will always rise. And I would suggest that you take some time today to look around and enjoy the day. Look at some of the small things. Look at the sunshine. And if you don't have a sunny day back in Scotland, most likely they won't have a sunny day, then take some time to enjoy the smallest things in life. You know, a beautiful flower, a stunning landscape like Scotland has so many of, a happy animal bouncing along in the road, a dog or whatever, a baby laughing, and really pause and wonder at the beauty of everything and really think and reflect that we are lucky to be alive in such an advanced society. Let's keep it that way. Let's keep it that way. Keep everybody alive by using common sense. Anyway, this is Ian in Beijing. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. In the next 5 minutes or so, you'll see the sun come up. I'm just an old hippie. Believe in peace and wish we could get more of it. But you're going to see a beautiful sunrise any minute now. And I'll let you just watch that in complete silence and enjoy the sunrise and maybe show you what else is happening here. See? This is Beijing. I'll put you down. You see the sunrise. I hope you don't mind me rambling. I was feeling like that today. Any minute now you'll see the sun come up in the distance. But I'll leave you to it. I'm going to go watch it from the other room with a coffee. Thank you. It is a beautiful morning. Appreciate the comment. Please feel free to comment and share. I think after I close this down, I'll leave it on, let the sun come up, and you can see how beautiful Beijing is. Leave a comment. But I'll leave you to watch it in peace. Pause for the next, it's coming up next, within the next 5 minutes or so, you will see the most beautiful sunrise over Beijing. And it's a privilege to see it and wake up and see it this morning. But I'll let you watch it in some peace. So I'm going to go and grab a coffee and maybe think a little bit more about the craziness in the world. And as always, this is Ian. I don't know if you can see that. Ian in Beijing saying, peace, man, peace. Let's find common ground. Going for a coffee. I'm back. I've got a coffee. Where's the sunrise? Actually, I think it's due any minute. Maybe it's a little bit hazy in the distance. It's a cold one today, and I have to go out and get an NAT test, which is actually never a bother. I've shown a picture or two of queues, but most of the time the queue moves quite quickly. It was before in the last 4 or 5 days or so. I used to be able to go to many different testing stations, and most of the time you could walk up and just get taken within a minute or so and get your test. But there's the sun coming up. But now they've consolidated some of the testing centres, so I have to queue, and so it's going to be a cold one today. I'll wrap up warm, maybe get a hat on. Thanks, SC. Peace and prosperity to all. But you can just see in the distance there a little bit more redness coming up. You'll see the sun just coming through any minute now. But yeah, it's cold, man. It's cold outside. It's a very different cold in Beijing, and this is what I tell friends back in Scotland. The cold in Beijing is like a really dry cold. Your skin gets dry and your mouth gets dry. It's freezing cold, but there's no moisture in the air. And then when you go in a fake green screen, I love it. It's all fake. When you're in Scotland and the temperature's really cold, there's also moisture in the air, so you see a frost. You know, in Scotland, -9, it would be frosty. You would see it, but here it doesn't look cold. There's no frost because there's no moisture in the air. But when you go out, man, it's cold. Yeah, it's Beijing, SCY, yeah. Beijing, the land climate, yeah. It's locked, obviously it's inland, so it's a land temperature. And it gets cold, man. It gets cold. Come on, where's the sunshine? Maybe I've got my timing wrong. Well, I think it's always going to come up, that's for sure. You can start to see it now. It's beautiful. Morning coffee. Yeah, it's a great time to be alive. This is the thing. The technology that we've got is incredible. The other thing is, I was reading into this yesterday. I read a lot. You probably noticed. I was reading into the story of the space station that China now has. And somebody will correct me on this, I'm sure, but initially China wanted to be part of the International Space Station, but America objected, didn't want China to be a part of that International Space Station. So China was like, okay, we'll build our own space station. And then when you look at the comparison of the International Space Station and how it's cobbled together, and then you look at the new Chinese Chinese space station, and the clean lines and the technology involved, it's night and day. In fact, the way I think it's going, I think the International Space Station will have to be decommissioned, and then the only space station will be the Chinese space station, which is interesting. And then there'll be a race. I'll be long gone by then, but there'll be a race to colonise the moon. That'll be an interesting thing to live and see. I wish I could stay alive and see that. I often have this conversation with Lisa. I'd love to be a vampire and live forever. Lisa would hate to be a vampire, but me, wouldn't like to be a vampire because I don't want to eat people, but I would like to live forever and see the world changes, because it's fascinating for me. Well, anyway, here's the sun coming up. You can watch it in peace. I'm going to drink my coffee. Live streaming sunrise from Beijing. Enjoy. Morning. Good morning. I saw some text. I'm still getting used to this live streaming thing. I'm not the best at it. But I wanted to talk a little bit because I'd seen so much nonsense about the protests in China. A handful of people, 1.4 billion people. 1.4 billion people live in China. And we focus on a few thousand people protesting. It makes sense to me. Look at that, beautiful. Ain't that stunning? There's a bit of me that wants to zoom in, but I know as soon as I zoom in I lose the wider picture, and actually you don't get to see the sun the same way. It's beautiful. This is how life, simple life can be. A cup of coffee and watching the sunrise. How often do you do that? Here she comes, beautiful. It's just coming up now. You can see it on the, yeah. You see it on the camera. Can you see that, yeah? Yeah. Sunrise over Beijing. Comes. In fact, that's a better shot. Wow, managed to capture that and that. How cool is that? There you go. Beijing sunrise. Good morning, everybody. Have a fantastic day. And take the time to hold on to your loved ones. You get to my age, you lose people in life. And then you think back with regret. Don't do that. Tell the person next to you that you care for them, you love them. Hold them tight and enjoy the beauty of this beautiful earth. Look at that. Actually, once the sun comes up, I'll show you the roads. There's still cars on the road. And it is just after 7 in the morning. But the streets aren't as busy as what it used to be a few weeks ago. for obvious reasons. I'll show you that now. There's the streets, look. There's a road. You can see it. There you have it. Sunrise. Beautiful. I'll let it run for another couple of minutes and I'll probably bid you farewell. I just woke up this morning and thought I want to try a live stream and share some thoughts on this constant nonsense and pressure that I see coming China's way from a misguided Western society, I think. Anyway, it is what it is. Look at that beautiful blue sky. Not a single cloud. Let me see if I can give you some more shots before I turn it off. Let me see. There you go. I can only do this because they cleaned the windows. That's me. Maybe I should make a an aeroplane noise. Meow. Was that cat noise? There you go. Beautiful, eh? Anyway, there's the sun in all its glory. This is Ian in Beijing, bidding you all farewell. Take care, peace out. I'll explain this farting noise at some point in the future and how it came about. Let's focus. There you go. Take care, everyone. Catch you in the next one. As always, Peace out.